Hello, all. Welcome to Moonlit Muses.
Moonlit Mondays.
My name is Molly Pakula, and I'm with.
Eva Hope. And we are starting off with Moonlit Muses this week at 4 o'clock. And
Eastern.
Eastern
4 p.m.
Standard Time. Yes.
I'm in Mountain Time, 2 p.m. Mountain.
So we're going to have an interesting topic today. But before we dive into it, maybe we can do a little introduction so you guys know who we are, what we're all about, if you want to.
Yeah, so
Molly, do you want to start and tell us a little bit more about your background in astrology? What are you most excited about or like to focus on?
definitely. Thank you. My name is Molly Pakula. I am an astrologer who's very passionate about, I've studied both traditional Vedic and Hellenistic astrology, Western astrology. I'm really passionate about helping people connect to their dharma, their higher purpose, and creating a strategy around how to live their life in that purpose, in fulfillment. So aligning their work, their relationships, where they live locationally to their birth chart, which is their soul's map. I also tend to work with people around kind of empowerment is what I call it. So yeah, just really like turning their passions into something that can sustain them.
Beautiful. And what is your background? Like, where did you study? What kind of astrology do you like to practice?
Yeah, so I've studied Hellenistic astrology with Chris Brennan. I've done chart kind of trainings with OPA, Organization of Professional Astrology, and I'm currently in a it's like a 4-year Vedic astrology program with David Frawley. And yeah, I would say that it's always ongoing. I've been studying astrology since after I graduated college. I was doing philosophy and psychology, and I was working in a research lab, a psychology research lab, and I started looking into all the databases on, I was studying herbs at the time, like holistic medicine, and I realized, wow, all the ancient texts have planets associated with all these herbs. And back in the day, the doctors and the mental health was all connected to the planets. And so then it just kind of like, I started meeting astrologers, and then I got obsessed. And I went down the rabbit hole. How about you?
Putting all the pieces together.
Yep. I was like, oh, this is like the most holistic kind of thing to study. And yeah, I think I talked to other astrologers about this. It's not really like just a calling. It becomes like a compulsion, I would say, as being an astrologer. How about
Oh,
you?
well, I also feel like in order to understand something, you need that little component of obsession and really dive into it, and then eventually find more of a healthy balance. But it's like not possible if you really want to understand it. You have to like merge with all of that. I would say for me it was very similar. I started probably over 15 years ago, just experimenting with different esoteric modalities. And then it was really fascinating to me when I was kind of reflecting it back to me how there were so many connections, but somehow like the bigger picture of how everything ties in together, it's missing. So eventually I ended up finding my teacher. So again, he's a not just an astrologer, he teaches according to his system Asaman, which is about self-knowledge, but it's very integrative approach incorporating Greek philosophy, shamanic, esoteric practices, astrology. So when I met with him the first time, this is when I had that experience and feeling of like now everything makes sense, like all of these like different pieces coming together just because it's just a multifaceted approach. And I became really passionate because it's something really helped me at that time, going through my own personal life, things that probably didn't make sense on the outside, but I internally knew that that's how it should be. And it was very difficult when you know something to be true inside you, but you don't feel the external support.
Mm.
And this is something I discovered for me through, yes, his teachings. And yeah, then I became very passionate about understanding, learning more from him. And yeah, and then sharing with others. And then with that, I also integrate my own other practices like different spiritual practices, yoga, somatic healing, tantric stuff. So again, it's just I've accumulated so much over the years, but the main focus and lens that I look through it and approach it is definitely through the astrological perspectives that I learned from him. And then it's interesting, something we spoke about last week, because my love and focus is really finding that soul awakening and harmony within us. But it's funny when we spoke about what kind of people and clients we normally attract. It's true. I attract a lot of people in crisis situations, but I think it's something that speaks a lot about my own personal experience. In order for you to feel empathy and compassion to someone, you kind of need to go through a lot of shit stuff yourself. So yeah, for me it was always this: how can I find peace and harmony and balance despite the fact that you go to a lot of turbulent situations in life? So that's, I think, the most exciting thing about it, finding the lesson in the chaos and seeing what lies behind it and create a more harmonious and beautiful life, if not outside of you, because we can't change everything, but we can definitely start with ourselves. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, to intro today's topic, we're trying to, this was Eva's idea, align it to the moon, the current lunation, and we're always going to meet on moon days. And so, do you want to share more about what today's topic is?
Yeah, so we decided, since it's Monday and Monday is a day of the moon, and just like the moon cycles, our emotions, our experiences change. So we want to speak about, and today, actually, let's not forget that today the moon is in Libra, which is all about relationships, partnerships, harmony, balance. That's why we're wearing pink. To honor the energy of the day. I know Molly really likes to work also with a lot of remedies.
Absolutely.
So this is our remedy.
Yeah.
And the topic or focus of today would be on the topic of what do women want? And approaching this question, this $1 million question, from an astrological perspective, and trying to go under the surface and understanding, based on a female's energetic blueprint, how she experiences her own inner world and femininity, and where there could be potential conflicts if she's more at ease with herself. um, if you don't mind, I'll just bring in here a fun little realization that I came to this past Saturday. I was at this event and there were a lot of young girls, and they're about in their early 20s. And the main question they were asking, despite the fact that, they're just graduating from school, going out into the world, starting, a whole new chapter in their life, the main question was about like love and relationships. And even before we went to the astrological perspective, and just having this one-on-one conversation, understanding like where they're at in the moment and what they're looking for, they did seem very confused or contradicted. It's like they want something, but they need something else. And at that age, that is very common. I wouldn't say when I was 20 years old, I knew exactly how to even verbalize things that I wanted. Maybe there are some women that do, but very few. And but eventually, even if you have like these conflicting situations in your own chart or in your own experience, we can still work with them. It's like when we bring them to awareness, then we can consciously work with them instead of letting them run down our life and say that men are horrible. And again, use it as a tool to feel good in our own skin, and yeah, fulfilled that we have made changes ourselves that we are proud of and feel good about ourselves. So yeah. You want to take it from here, Molly?
Sure. So, Venus in astrology, for those who might not be familiar or newer to astrology, is essentially how we experience, how we attract, but it's also how we experience love, affection, beauty, and even more importantly, because Venus rules the second house of value, it's how we value ourselves, how we define our worth. And in life, it's true, like working with people as a coach and as an astrologer, how someone values themselves, and you get a lot of insight into the Venus placement of where they're at with that, or their unique style of receiving love, or going after what they find to be pleasurable. Um, it comes to into play. It's really important when it comes to how we, if we run a business, how we price our services if we're entrepreneurs, and also the type of relationships we attract. So Venus rules also the seventh house, the Libra house, which is not just romantic relationships, but it's one-to-one contracts. And those can be business partnerships, those can be relationships with like landlords. And so it really does seep into all the areas of our life. And they say, how we treat our money is a direct reflection of our relationships too. Like in Vedic thought, at least, this is really interesting, but if you want to attract love, you have to have a clean car. That's one of the remedies. Is if you have a messy car, it can actually block you from attracting love. So, and you, Eva, do a lot of design and style things, which kind of ties into me, for me, like feng shui and energy work, right? So, yeah, I'd love your talk on that. Like, if you have a client that's coming to you and they're like, "I really want love," like a lot of these girls are saying, like, do you ask them about kind of lifestyle things, or how they kind of relate to Venus in other ways of their life, other areas?
Yeah, see, that's interesting because today we're going to look about aspects, especially between the moon and Venus, or Molly's going to speak more about Venus in conjunction or in aspects with like different planets. So we're going to take like a multi-dimensional approach to it. But when we say about when we look at Venus, it's something that we consciously like or enjoy, something that gives us also pleasure, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to make us emotionally fulfilled. So when I go about approaching how we're going to design a home, it's not always about just externally giving us pleasure to look at it. It's about how it emotionally impacts us. Like, for example, I can because my Venus is in Leo, I can really like flashy, out there things. But I would not want my home to feel like it's on a public stage because down in my IC I have a Scorpio.
Mm.
So although I like all the sparkles and flashiness at home, and there's like different things that play into that. But when I look at fourth house, moon, and so on, I want a lot more privacy, a lot more no space where I can focus. So for example, if there is people that come into my house, I want to know that in advance. I don't like these random surprises. Hello, now we have like 20 people coming to your place, and it's like, no. So definitely when we speak about like designing in terms of how it emotionally impacts our space, I don't look so much at Venus.
Okay.
So that's why I think it's really important when we look at female charts and understanding the feminine energy. It's really like what is it the aspect, because especially in the case we're going to speak more about it, like where you have difficult aspects, like in the case of square opposition, you might really like something, but then want something that's completely opposite. So you can design even like your home or be in a relationship that you really want, but then ultimately you don't feel fulfilled.
Because it doesn't align with that inner moon meaning.
Yes, yes. And that is something that's tied to our subconscious, so we're not aware of it. So that's why we need that esoteric knowledge to help us create it. Um, because otherwise, it's like something is bothering me, but I don't know what it is. So we need to figure it out.
I think that's a great point. just from a relationship perspective, to speak to that, I think Venus can be like our style of attracting. It can even be the kind of way we like to be kind of seen and validated. Like I think of Venus a lot as like our magnetism, and it plays into attraction and synastry and relationship compatibility on some level. But if you have just the Venus Mars and the moon is not aspected with that other person, yeah, you're ultimately gonna, and like you said, it can be confusing because for most people, not most, but for a large chunk of people, they're not going to have their moon in a harmonious aspect to Venus, and so then they have to understand that dichotomy of like, just because what you want and what is good for you are two different things.
Yeah. It's absolutely true. And sometimes the way you go about it might not be in your best interest. So that
Absolutely.
so then it's very easy to project it on the other person or roommate or partner, but meanwhile it's a conflict within you that you still need to resolve. Um,
Like for example, to give an example, if your Venus is a fire sign and you're flirty and out there, yeah, and want to be out there, but then you have a moon Earth and you actually really value consistency and stability, it's like you might attract a lot of partners that just think you're fun and maybe don't take you as seriously, but yet your moon actually really needs that consistency, security, and stability and maturity. So yeah, it can be like, I feel like our Venus can be kind of like what we project, or how we maybe even come across like our rising sign. But then our moon is like underneath all of that, what we really need for safety.
yeah, like in the case, especially like Leo, Venus, and Scorpio moon makes a square. So, for example, yes, Leo craves attention, and you can tell me how beautiful, amazing, and incredible I am, but if I can't trust you,
Hmm.
that becomes a deal breaker. So eventually, what you want to build as a base is trust and loyalty. And then all the admiration can come. But if you have all this hype and fluff, but there is no base, something feels unfulfilling in that dynamic, in that relationship or home environment. Again, like you mentioned, Mo, it has to deal with, our business partnerships, our uh, contracts, and a lot more than just our intimate relationships. Yeah.
I was gonna just maybe go through, if you're okay with it, like Venus through the elements, and maybe how they, maybe the gift of each, and maybe the learning growth for each. Um, I had some notes on this and now I can't find it, so I might just have to freestyle. But
I know you wanted to also speak more. I don't know if you want to
yeah,
bring up more about like attachment styles, because
oh,
ultimately
definitely,
Venus
definitely.
is something that brings us pleasure. So I don't know if you want to tie it into, let's say, fire signs. What is something that gives you pleasure, or
Yes.
what's your style of attachment? Yeah.
Yeah, so like with a Venus and fire, especially when it comes to the realm of like their self-value, they get a lot of their value is tied to like validation. And so say in like a business sense where that Venus could overgive, and also Venus is in an aspect to something like Neptune, a planet like Neptune, which I have, it can definitely lead to like over giving or over functioning in relationships, and kind of not having good discernment with those like contracts, because you just, it's like a love that's just very like transcendental. It's a love nature that's just very like spiritual, and so people can take advantage of that. But I was just going to say, like Venus and fire, to give an example, I have a Venus fire in my Vedic chart. um yeah, a lot of like what feeds a Venus and fire is like validation. And so the shadow of that could then be maybe overgiving or oversharing when you're feeling you need that validation, rather than really honoring boundaries or honoring like, is this like a reciprocal give and take, or am I just enjoying the attention? Like, is this
Yeah.
really what I want, or am I just enjoying?
I mean, yeah, and also passion, excitement,
Hmm.
but it's not like constant like Earth. So it's more like spurs of moments.
Yes.
what feeds that excitement.
Yeah, it's like following, and I would say the gift of a Venus and fire is, yeah, they can get people inspired, they can get people excited and passionate, and that can be really attractive to people because then they feel good in your presence. So that's one of the gifts of Venus and fire. Venus and Earth is definitely like the people that would, their love language would be acts of service. And I would say the shadow of Venus and Earth, and we're talking Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, could be kind of viewing relationships in a more, and one could argue all relationships are transactional, but you could say that the Earth Venuses especially might over prioritize, like, what does this person really do for me? Like, and how are they showing up for me in like a very tangible way that it makes sense practically. Venus and
Yeah.
water is going to be, that would be an exalted Venus by traditional astrology. So Venus in Pisces is Venus exalted. So that would be a Venus that's like in its element. So Venus and water is very much emotionally connective. They're maybe feeling, it's more of going off like a feeling that they get, being drawn to what feels good. Venus is pleasure, right? So the shadow of Venus and water could be not having, great boundaries, just like if Venus is aspecting Neptune, or if Venus is in the 12th house in someone's chart, that's a water house, they could potentially be more susceptible to like addictive, um, kind of just like that leaky, I call it like the leaky Shakti energy of just wanting something that feels good and being overly maybe in that feminine energy. But the uplifting side of it, the gift of it is compassion and connectivity, being able to access those two energies. And then Venus in air is, interesting because it's a little more cerebral, a little more, it's still about connection and pleasure, I would say, but maybe more on the mental plane.
Yes, communication, it's really necessary and important.
But
Yeah.
to add to the aspect thing, because I think that's super
Mhm.
important, whether you're looking at whatever zodiac you're using, how Venus is aspecting, as you mentioned, moon is super important into like, do my desires align with my needs? Does my satisfaction align with my contentment? Because that's really important, because a lot of times people will go after things that isn't really going to fulfill them, like people with a Venus Earth that might chase financial security, but then their moon's in a water sign, they just want love, like they really just need connection, but they think it's like in buying more things. um
Yeah, like I have a perfect example I can bring up, especially with the square aspect. Like one woman, she has her Venus in Capricorn, but her moon is in Aries. So what she wants is structure, discipline, predictability. She wants to feel respected as a woman for her decisions, but the way she goes about it is in the wrong way because Aries is very impulsive. So just imagine a situation happens. Capricorn is very stoic. Like there is not much impulsivity, reactivity, emotional outbursts. Where Aries is almost like a child, starts to scream and get into almost like war when it doesn't get what it wants. So it's almost like this little baby is meeting this like mature adult. And it's like she wants to be respected, but the way she would go about it is oftentimes getting into conflicts.
Interesting. Exactly. So what advice, like how do you guide a client like that?
So I would always, if you look at a square aspect, which is 90 degrees, then this is a Mars aspect. So I'm going to look at where the Mars is in the chart. So, for example, in her case, she has her Mars in Pisces. So that would mean a lot of spiritual practices. I mean, if she's not an artist and she's kind of using to channel her anger or that frustration or that need to be heard in an aggressive way, then it will definitely be in some kind of a spiritual practice. Or this would be also could be a great chart for somebody who wants to be, let's say, a doctor.
Okay.
Because you can um, let's say you can use this as an opportunity to um, serve when we speak about Pisces and compassion, but it's also connected to the medical field from a very compassionate way, serve others, but also you being in charge, which is satisfies your moon. And then by default, then you receive that respect that you're looking for.
I like that. I like that.
So definitely then we need to look at the Mars. Again, every chart will be so different and we need to like dive deeper to be more concrete, but then we look at the Mars because that's where we have to put all of our energy and effort in. How does my Mars function in my chart? What do I need to do? And because she has her Mars in Pisces, but in the third house, it's really about, again, daily practicing, but also could be teaching some spiritual practices. Again, oftentimes we end up not even teaching, but sharing things that we have personally struggled with. So we have put so much energy and effort into helping educating ourselves of how to do it. Then at some point it becomes almost our need to extend it beyond ourselves.
All right. I
Yeah.
actually, one of the examples we were going to talk about, we can bring it up, is
Sure.
another square, since we're on the topic of if your Venus is in a challenging or more hard aspect to your moon. And so one of our examples here is, I'm adding this to the stage, is Liza Minnelli, a famous figure, well-known show woman, and she's got her Venus, as I circled, in her 12th, in Aries, in the tropical zodiac, squaring her moon, which is in Pisces, or sorry, Cancer.
Yeah. So it's interesting that, look, in terms of her needs, because her moon falls, it's almost on the fourth house cusp. What is that? Yeah, it's exactly on the fourth house cusp at 19 degrees. So she definitely needs like a very deep emotional nurturing. And depending of whether she got it from her mother or not, it's questionable. But this is what she needs.
Yeah, Moon, Saturn, Mars. Sorry, I added Moon, Saturn to that.
Yeah, that was sarcastic. It's very questionable. But that's what she ultimately needs. She wants a home environment where she feels emotionally nourished, almost like a mother can sense your needs without asking you, are you cold, are you hungry, and so on. But then her Venus really wants to be somebody who is, she can be also demanding with that Venus in Aries. She could be someone who likes to take the lead or be dominating in a way, which kind of clashes with that need of Cancer of receptivity. But yeah, so here, honestly, we're gonna have to rework a lot of. It's probably a lot of mommy issues for sure. With that
Mm-hmm.
Mars in Cancer, with Saturn, there is a lot of hidden aggression towards the mom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know exactly her background and the relationship dynamics between her parents or in her relationship with her mom specifically, but that definitely almost becomes like a challenge in her relationships because let's say she wants emotional nurturing, but she might go about it in a very uh,
Aggressive.
aggressive or passionate way. Well, actually, she might actually with her because it's Venus is something that we receive, not something we go about, but she might receive passion as care. Meanwhile, it's more like a turn on. Doesn't mean if somebody desires you and is fascinated by you that necessarily they care about you and how you feel. They might just desire you sexually, but that doesn't mean that they care
Mm.
about you as a person. Yeah. And I think you mentioned, her story a little bit better than I do. Like she's had how many marriages and stuff.
For Liza Minnelli's been married 4 times. Interestingly, Venus is our relationships, right? So that when people come asking about relationships, I always look at what's going on with Venus, what's going on with the seventh house ruler. But what's kind of interesting is, you know, she's got Venus in the 12th house, and those people can have a lot of like, not all, but often they can have hidden or more like secretive relationships. It can also point to having relationships with people from foreign lands because the 12th house is foreign lands. Her first husband was the Australian entertainer Peter Allen. And so, you know, obviously he comes from a different country, but then he also was gay. So he later came out of the closet. Um, and you know, with if you I tell people too, if like when I'm looking at synastry, if there's a lot of activations in the 12th overlays in the 12th house in synastry, I say proceed with caution. Sometimes it can just represent the person's like from a foreign place or from far away, but it can also be because it's the house of like illusions and secrets and what isn't seen. It can be challenging for relationships because those people can find themselves in sometimes affairs, sometimes hidden things. 12th house is also the house of addiction. And I do know for a fact she was in rehab for alcoholism, I believe, because one of my friends actually was in rehab with her. And yeah, so that's another thing. Venus and Aries, it's impulsive. It's a little more compulsive. And especially in the 12th house, it could lean more towards maybe maladaptive pleasure seeking behaviors.
Again, yeah, I just want to bring this up here because I think this is something that we can all make a conscious choice of. Yes, that is very possible to have these escapism tendencies. At the same time, on the positive sides, once we make conscious choices, we can also choose to really explore more because 12th house is also arts, cinema, spirituality. So kind of divert the energy more in that direction rather than in the self-destructive. So we always have a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why we bring it to our awareness so we can like see where there could be shadow and then yeah, what with that awareness, how we want to channel that energy. Um,
Yeah.
so do you want to go to our next example?
Sure. I mean, with her chart, there is just so much to talk about. I guess we wanted to focus here more on the Moon and Venus aspect and in terms of the square. But again, if we want to add in another layer, we also have the Lilith and Scorpio in the seventh house. So you definitely see a lot of this insecurities in terms of relationship. And ultimately, it's her main lesson will be learning to find somebody she can emotionally trust in. This has to do a lot with emotional trust issues here.
Yeah, definitely.
Even
Um,
though outwardly she could feel very content and confident, because when she has her Venus, look, her Venus is, I think you circled it here, is an aspect with Mercury. So when
mhm.
she kind of gets her way, it almost gives her like this confidence of like, I won, I got what I wanted. But at the same time, it doesn't mean she is really fulfilled emotionally. So definitely she's had to go through a lot of lessons about um, finding the person she can emotionally trust and create that stable, safe space with. Again, it could be because, okay, and it's normal. Okay, you said the first husband came out of the closet after they got married. I don't know how her other relationships played out, but probably there are a lot of these situations where many events made her really doubt, am I even capable or able to have a safe, emotionally safe and stable home?
Absolutely. And that's where I think it is important to look at like these like kind of underlying shadow or challenging energies that could be playing out so then we can be more conscious and then kind of have more discernment, let's say, right, for filtering out like when we're connected, when we are in relationship, like is this attachment or is this attraction coming from like where is it coming from, because sometimes it's coming from an unhealed place and sometimes it's coming from a more integrated and healthy place. And I think when we know our own shadows, our own challenges, we can then have clearer discernment when it comes to like understanding what's this person triggering in us, especially why I love doing sinister readings too, because you can literally see exactly how this person could be triggering all these like, unconscious aspects of yourself.
Yeah. And maybe just as an example, we can give like if somebody has this kind of a square aspect, at least in her case,
Uh-huh.
with that Mars in Cancer, then she would need to prioritize really learning different ways to emotionally nurture herself and almost have this as like a practice in order for her to cultivate more of that self-trust, belonging, those not react based on insecurities or almost try to perform to feel loved,
Mm,
but create that experience within her. So it comes with a lot of inner work.
definitely.
Yeah.
One of the other examples I wanted to use, it's another example where Venus and the moon are not exactly seeing each other. They're in conjunct. And then we have another added fun layer of Venus with the planet Uranus, actually exact in this individual's chart. And this is the chart of Elizabeth Taylor. I like this picture of her because it kind of really shows that Uranian, like avant-garde, unpredictable, like out there kind of present, style, fashion, let's say. Um, yeah, so she has an exact, and that's where outer planets become more important. Of course, traditional systems don't utilize outer planets because they weren't conceived of, but outer planets, when they're exactly conjunct a personal planet, it's important to look at because that outer planet's going to flavor the expression of Venus. And I call this kind of Venus Aphrodite unbound. It can be a more, let's say, if we're talking attachment styles, maybe it's a more avoidant attachment style or a little more of a eccentric attachment style, but it's unpredictable, unconventional, and maybe even a lot of instant attractions. Like those people could maybe have a lot of instant connections that come kind of out of nowhere, or maybe there's a taboo quality to the nature of their love nature. Maybe they're more unconventional. It doesn't mean everyone with this aspect is polyamorous or something, but she was married 8 times. That's a lot of marriages. And I know in Hollywood that's not that uncommon to get remarried or whatever, but 8 husbands is kind of a lot. And so and especially in her time period where divorce maybe was more shameful. And she even had one of her partners, I think they separated. She had a lot of marriages that started while she was married or they were married or both of them were married. And some of her quotes are kind of all about, she says, I've been in love many times, always very intensely. For me, love is the ultimate adventure. And I don't pretend to be an ordinary woman. I'd rather have a big heart and make big mistakes than play it safe. You can't stop love. It's real. It flows through every boundary. So it's similar to maybe Venus Neptune vibration, but it can definitely be like an eclectic, free love kind of nature. Or, maybe they are people that really, especially if you have Venus in Capricorn or Venus in Scorpio or Venus in a fixed sign and with Saturn also, there might be that kind of balance where you are wired for paradox. Like you might love and be deeply devoted, yet you have an independent nature and you want to maybe reinvent what commitment looks like to you or what a traditional structured relationship really is for you, right? So that's kind of my little speech on Venus with Uranus, because I mean, yeah, it's definitely something that can bring a lot of unpredictability to relationships. I mean, also, I have Venus with my Uranus, and I would say for me, like, I might attract a lot of people, but it doesn't mean they're going to last or that it's good for me or that I want that energy. So it's like the ability to, like, maybe have a lot of people that are interested or orbiting, but not necessarily like that stability piece with love.
Yeah. Well, since I use mostly traditional astrology, so for example, I don't look at the planets like Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune so much. but I could pretty much relate this to a very similar to Aquarian energy. So it's definitely either more eccentric, more unusual type of relationship. If it doesn't have like this sudden breakup or show up point, then the relationships do take a more unusual form. And the way I would probably explain this to someone: if your parents don't like him, go and get married, and if they do like him, drop him off. It almost has like this like little rebellious element to it.
That's actually a really good point. That's actually a really good point. Yeah, I think they need a long leash. I mean, her Venus is also in Aries, like our last example. And people with Venus in Aries, they need their independence. Even if they're in a committed partnership, they still need to feel sovereign.
But interesting thing is, I think she might be delusional about what she emotionally needs in relationships, because with that moon in Scorpio, you really want
Yeah.
depth and trust. But the why she can be also delusional about it, and that's okay. But she has like the seventh house in Gemini, and the Gemini is not about death. I mean, sometimes like these people can get married like suddenly at like 18. Hey, we just met and I like you, and let's go to Elvis' house and
Hmm.
get married. And then also the ruler Mercury is in Pisces, so automatically there could be some not realistic or not very grounded ideas about relationships. Well, it's emotionally nurturing. It's more about like this curiosity and excitement, and kind of escape through that from the day-to-day world. But with that moon in Scorpio again, I don't know how she actually felt in her last marriage, if she was able to experience that depth. Do you know anything about it?
I mean, it's hard to say because, we look at these well-known people's charts and I'm not their counselor and I don't know them personally.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously she's deceased, bless her soul. But yeah, yeah, we can just kind of, what's the word? Suppose, I guess, that,
Assume,
yeah,
yeah, assume. Yeah.
that, yeah, maybe on a deeper level, there was like that craving for that deep, bonded, and transformative. But, I guess she also had a lot of resilience to just bounce back and even like break up with someone and then marry them again, which to me is pretty crazy, but like you
Well,
already got divorced, but you're gonna remarry the same person.
look, seventh house is Gemini. Gemini is not about it's like a child.
Definitely. You do have to factor the seventh house in for sure.
Yeah, and yeah, like you said, also with Aries, it's impulsive. I'm curious, what will happen? We get divorced, we get remarried.
And the ruler, let's see, yeah, the ruler of her seventh house is
In
sitting,
Pisces.
yeah, in Pisces with Mars and the sun. Yeah. Yeah, very impulsive, very
A-
like
And just for the sake of creativity, let's explore what it looks like. Get married, get divorced.
the thing. With Venus Uranus, it's very experimental. That's like a word.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah.
experimental. It's like, well, I'll try it out. It could maybe seem a little non-attached, but yeah, again, you have to look at the whole chart because
Um,
the person could, yeah, have a moon that really wants that like deeper connection. We did get a question. Someone said, how would you interpret Lilith with her North Node in Pisces to find her independent wild female energy? Well, Lilith is like a whole episode on its own.
yeah. I mean, I would say like, yeah, that is part of also her journey though.
Hmm.
So kind of also, I feel like with the Lilith and Pisces, you also almost get to a point where you're so, uh, because I'm sure, especially in her time, a lot of the public, although she's an artistic personality, but would view her life as very unacceptable. Like
Hmm.
that's something that does not fit the norm for sure.
Yeah.
But it's more with that Lilith and North Node, it's more about how can you find compassion that there is something really also beautiful about your own different experience in life.
Yeah, with when Lilith is like prominent with the nodes or with the midheaven or the sun or the moon, I would say those people naturally carry that persecution wound maybe, or that desire to break out of the mold of what society deems as like acceptable, especially when it comes to feminine, that raw primal feminine energy. And so she was pretty, I would say, yeah, I agree. She was pretty, I would say, shameless in her being so open or outspoken about like, this is who I am, and I'm not going to feel, I don't feel bad about how I express love or my
But I,
relationship.
yeah, I think that's something she had to like learn to integrate.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lilith is uncomfortable when it's if you I would say like speaking of, I have Lilith pretty strong in my chart. It's yeah, something you have to maybe mature into, because there could be fears, past life, karmic, whatever, of like, yeah, literally being attacked or persecuted for something about your expression. Depending on what house it's in, where it's in, if it's like in your 10th house, like what your work, how you show up in a public way, that could be public scrutiny. If it's with your fourth, it could be like your home life. Um, but it definitely shows like an edge, a growth edge of where we have to like integrate some shadow.
Yeah, I think in a lot of aspects it's shown as something very sexy. Meanwhile, internally it does create a lot of doubts.
Yeah, fear, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It can really show where we have fears.
Mm-hmm. So I can kind of imagine this almost like that's her path in life, something that she might be shamed for, she would fear to express, but eventually, the more she kind of steps into that and embraces that, then
It's her power.
yeah, it brings her power, brings her that pioneering image into the world.
So we have about 12, 13 minutes left. So
Cool.
let's
Okay.
go into, do you want to go into Cindy?
Okay, yeah, let's just speak quickly. I'm gonna speak about like the opposition aspect and how it plays out. So technically, when we have an opposition between like the Moon and Venus, it's like 180 degrees, which is a Saturn aspect. So the way it can feel as an experience, it can create a lot of fear. Um, uh, let's say one can play out as there was an inconsistency in your experience with your love from your mom, let's say, so it could almost create like this fear of, do I really deserve what I want, or to um, or do I deserve to also enjoy myself but also feel emotionally fulfilled?
Hmm.
So it creates like almost like this inner opposition. Well, it is the aspect of opposition, and almost like detachment, which can create like again insecurities within a person. So what will be really important here is to look where the Saturn is placed in the chart, and it would call for somebody to seek more self-discipline and learning how to set boundaries. Actually, I even wrote this here. Like an important lesson would be, I'm valuable for how I feel, not only how I make others feel. So this is something to move past the people pleasing tendencies and not adapting your needs based on the situation, but really creating your own principles of, what do I value, what do I need, what is important to me. So let's say somebody has this knowledge, look at your needs or moon, and then look at your Venus, and kind of create like, okay, these are essential for me to feel safe and good in a relationship, and it's not too much to want that and to enjoy that. So in her case, actually it's really interesting, with her moon in Scorpio, she wants to be well known and recognized in the public sphere, but also she craves that, a part of her craves to be in control of her surroundings.
Hmm.
and to be respected, not publicly humiliated, for example. But then a part of her, so she kind of craves that also intensity, transformation, growth, rebirth. But then a part of her also craves like safety, stability, uh,
Mm,
which is Taurus. It wants that just material comfort. So it's almost like to how this for example how this can play out. You can show the image of somebody who is able to go through tr- transformations, or almost portray like this sexy image, since we have like Scorpio in the midheaven and the moon is in there. Like we could provocative image, let's say, into the world. But then deep down inside, you want stability. It's not about always this provocation and mysticism and eroticism. It's more about sensuality, comfort, stability. I think you can see this a lot of times with. Actually, I'm not very familiar. I should have done this with her life's story, but what I know is that she was dating uh, a producer or her manager back in the days for like 6.5 years, and it turned out to be not a very happy ending. So it almost kind of created not very public, but still kind of a scandal,
mm.
something that could have impacted her reputation. Uh, which, but then internally, what gives her pleasure, it is not that scandal, not that
Comfort.
yeah, she wants comfort.
Love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. She doesn't want. When we look at Venus in Taurus, you don't want through your relationship to have that transformation. You want something that's stable, that's reliable, that gives you that sense of peace. And actually, I think later on she quoted that with her husband, he's pretty much the one who brings harmony into.
Oh,
But it's something she had to adapt to,
right.
not so much like put actions. And it's really interesting. Her Saturn is in Libra, so through that, her new partner, her husband, it almost helped her learn ways how to adapt to that.
I can't help but just think, like when I look at her chart too, again I do use that our planets like they're creating a square with Pluto, both her moon and her Venus. And the Venus Pluto thing, that's a whole other kind of archetype to work with. But especially, I think of her song Money Changes Everything, right? And it's interesting she was involved with like a manager. Like I think with Venus and aspect of Pluto, you can attract these like weird, especially if it's a hard aspect, power dynamics that get intermingled into love. Like where especially in men's charts, I've noticed this, like men, no offense out there, but men with Venus Pluto tend to want to like buy or have some sort of big power gap in their dynamic because it's control that gets very much tied up in the relational nature. And in this case, yeah, being involved with like a manager, it seems like a clear kind of conflict of interests, but you might, if you have Venus in aspect of Pluto, find yourself in situations where, yeah, it's like there's these kind of like subtle power plays going on.
Yeah, yeah. So that's definitely something that she experienced. It is related to her moon in Scorpio that, questioned her ability to possibly, fear if I can really trust somebody emotionally and so on.
Hmm.
But again, ultimately, because we're looking at an opposition, we look where Saturn is in Libra, through a partner, she's also able to overcome that and get to meet the Venus, which is about creating an emotionally nurturing and stable and comforting home. And I honestly like Saturn aspects because they're difficult. At the same time, Saturn is something that gives us restriction and difficulties early on in our life, but eventually it's something that helps us grow and gives us something that's tangible, real, and stable.
I love that. I agree
Yeah.
wholeheartedly. Um,
Mhm.
Next example, we have a more easeful. Well, not in terms of Moon Venus, but this is a very, I would say, embodied Venus woman, Beyonce. So she has one of the more lucky or easeful aspects of Venus. She does have Venus Pluto, interestingly, um, in a pretty close conjunction, but she's got the Venus Jupiter conjunction, which in the Vedic tradition is known as a Lakshmi Yoga, which basically blesses one with luxury, beauty, wealth. Obviously, she's a very powerful woman, you know, Venus with Pluto and Jupiter. So, and Saturn's in the mix too. She's got a stellium. She's got her Venus is loaded up.
For
But yeah,
sure.
and her Venus is in Libra, right? It's in its own sign, in its own comfort, and it's its natural expression. And then yeah, with Jupiter is a very strong placement for having like lot of material abundance and perhaps maybe blessings in your within relationship too. And she's obviously had a very long-term partnership.
And in her work, because it's also in the sixth house, and we
Mhm.
can all see that she's had a lot of success in her work. Yeah.
But this is like another kind of like where the moon and Venus don't see each other.
Well, here the moon is in Scorpio, Venus is yeah, in Libra, so it's creating a semi-sextile, which is 30 degrees. So for that, we kind of look at Mercury, which again is in Libra. So it's more about coming to this realization about what do I like and want, and what do I need. But when you
Mhm.
have a Mercury aspect, it's still considered an easier aspect. It's something that we can, it's about communication, speaking, until we realize and understand on a mental level what is we need and we want. It's not like we consciously need to act on it or trying to adapt ourselves. It's still relatively, maybe she's had like few relationships that didn't work out. Then you come to realize, like, okay, this is what I want.
Mm. Yeah, through experience and through the passage of time, which
And
can
understanding, mentally understanding, yeah. Yeah.
um so that's kind of wraps up our examples. We're kind of at the end of our show here. So keep it
Yeah.
really tight in. We want to invite you all to reach out with any of your burning questions that
Cool.
connect with astrology, any topics you'd like us to cover, to uncover, to dig into from an esoteric astrological perspective. It can be controversial, it can be juicy, it can be very practical. But yeah, we're also open to guests. We're open to your very specific questions. That way we can, you know, kind of show you how astrology can really help transform and uplift your life. And did you want to tease like what our next episode's going to be?
What is our next episode going to be? Good question. I was just
Day,
thinking.
every Monday.
I was just thinking when he said, send us your burning questions. Yes, we want to actually light up everything that could be chaotic, uncomfortable.
Yeah, we'll
uh,
go there. We're not.
we're gonna go there, yes. So we would love actually if you want to share with us a personal story, if you have any of these difficult aspects, and so we can like navigate through them together.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Molly, what is next Monday?
Well, let's undress this one step at a time. Let me check. I thought since you put the itinerary together, you might have the
I don't have the file pulled up in front of me, and I
okay.
completely
I got it. I got it. I'm opening it.
forgot.
So, oh wait, no, that was this week's episode. Let me check.
Lead us in to the mystery of what we're going to uncover, or maybe not, next
Okay.
Monday.
Oh, I found it. I found our thing. Okay, so next Monday, next moon day,
Monday.
it's going to have something to do. Well, I'll give the name of it. It's called Styling Your Scars from Trauma to Freedom.
Oh,
So, if you want to
Who
write,
wants to break free?
yeah, if you want to write in, if you have any scars that you would love to transform. It's in honor of the moon in Capricorn. The moon is tropical Capricorn. So yeah, how to take our deepest pains and have them be our biggest catalyst. Sounds like.
Yes, on the path to freedom.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you would
Yes,
love to work with us, Eva or myself, you can do that QR code up in the left corner. It'll take you to Astromagistus, where ourselves, amongst sundry other very talented astrologers and coaches, can support you in guidance.
yes, and there is many different chart readings that are offered and coaching. So check it out. And we're excited to see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Moonlit Muses with Molly and I.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.